Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
For artists that want to follow a realistic style, I don't know that you necessarily have to overthink about an influence like me or any other painter who does realism. You can certainly get a lot from the pieces that we've done, maybe even imitate some of those compositions, but I think you'll find your own way once you're just studying reality, which is what I would do. I mean, if I'm going to look at people, things, photographs, it's beneficial to start shooting your own if you can get into that. And these days, since everybody's got a camera, that's not so much of an issue anymore. Being able to study life as the basis for something is the best. I had the longest problem of thinking I needed to have everybody and every element be perfect before I could use it as a reference source. And so it took me a long time to realize how flexible the basis of the human form is. I've posed for myself on loads of paintings where now I guess I'm called out by some people online. It's a process of getting your mind comfortable with what you're building off of. And at a certain point, I would say accept that you're going to feel like you're not seeing it until you've seen it. You know, that maybe you do need to have a thing look like a thing exactly before you're painting from it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Look at our guests today, the creators behind a very cool Kickstarter that's underway for the Ivory King. And we've got writer JT Krul and returning champion. Good to see you, JT.
Hey, man. Good to see you, John.
And Jonathan, first, let me get your name correctly. I'm going to say Barravecchiva.
Barravecchia.
Barravecchia. All right. See, not even
close.
close.
You missed the syllable. That's
Barravecchia. All right. There you go.
Barravecchia.
Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. It's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, John.
Congratulations. The book is really cool. I've got the video loaded, and I'll show it in a second. But how did you guys get together, and why this concept?
Jonathan and I have been knowing each other for years, and we've worked a little bit here and there in comic books, and we just started forming like a professional and also personal friendship, and we just sat down for lunch one day and we decided, you know, what could we work on together? What would be something that'd be cool? And it was a long, fun lunch, and there's actually a sketch in his sketchbook of a tortoise with like a mini kingdom kind of built on its shell. And I just love that image of that kind of mythical kind of flair to it. And I was like, this is what we should do, something like this. And that was kind of the genesis for the whole thing.
Am I remembering right, Jonathan? Is that like...
yeah. JT and I talked about this just the other day because we both remembered it pretty vividly. But yeah, we'd met and worked on a couple smaller projects together. And then, just had lunch, knew we wanted to do something and weren't quite sure really what that was. And I had brought a couple sketchbooks with me, and I think we both gravitated towards this tortoise, which was great. It was something I wanted, a world that I love playing in, and JT the same.
And I was going to say, and I wanted your side of the origin story, but yeah, that turtle with the city, isn't that like? I mean, what mythology? What mythology does that come from? Because I know I've heard that.
Yeah, it's nothing that I came up with.
No, but I love it. And seriously, that just totally opened a mythology door that I haven't opened in years. I'm like, oh yeah, the turtle with like a city on top. Like that's like a view of the world. I don't remember if it was Eastern or whatever mythology.
I think that there's Actually, I should double check this. I think that there's a part of a Hindu tradition that has the world on the back of an elephant on the back of a turtle.
Oh, interesting. Because I I didn't
Yeah,
remember
so
the
it's a
elephant.
whole. It's a
a
Wow.
layer.
Sounds like a bartender
yeah.
joke. You know, this
Yeah,
turtle
yeah,
and
yeah.
an elephant walk into the bar with the world on top of them.
Yeah.
Really?
But and then to JT's credit though, where the story goes is in directions that I never would have thought of, because there's nothing really to do with, this isn't spoiler, but like the turtle with the city on his back is not the Ivory King. Like the Ivory King grew into such a larger story and such a larger world. But from that image, we both sort of thought this is something fun. Like there's something there.
But there's there's like a philosophical tone to it. This notion of like about existing on a world and not really having a sense of your place in the universe. And so with this story, I mean, it's an adventure story, and there's swords and sorcery and an epic quest in that. But there's also just a sense of a philosophical bent to it, where about people and creatures in this case trying to kind of find their place in the world, and that was always a big part, because one of the things I'm really drawn to is less the I'm the chosen one stories, a person destined for something great, for some greatness, as opposed to the ordinary thrown into the extraordinary, where somebody who's ordinary is called upon to rise to the challenge, and will they or won't they kind of thing. And those are the kind of stories that always kind of interest me a little more. And so that's what we want to do with this. So with Bixel, who's the blacksmith apprentice, is this ordinary citizen of this kingdom, subject of the Ivory King, Gaman, the elephant, and he gets thrust into this and called upon to go beyond his means to try to help.
Okay, I've got the video loaded up, so let's take a look at it. This is what you'll watch on their Kickstarter page. So here's a taste of the Ivory King.
Hey everybody, JT Krul here. I'm the writer and co-creator of The Ivory King. Thank you so much for checking out our Kickstarter page. We hope you enjoyed the trailer showing a little bit of what our illustrated novel has to offer. I'm thrilled to be working with my collaborator and co-creator, Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. He handled all the artistic duties on the book, but also was there from the inception to develop the project every step of the way as we built the world of The Ivory King. It's a fantasy adventure about a blacksmith apprentice, a badger named Bixel, who gets drawn into an epic quest to find a mysterious elixir that may be the only thing that can save the king and kingdom that he calls home. We've got a lot of exciting additional features available on the Kickstarter below at the different tiers, from prints and sketchbooks to actual original sketches by Jonathan himself, and even a few pieces of original art featured in the book available as well. So we hope you check it out. We hope you enjoy your first look at the Ivory King, and thank you so much for coming here today. Take care.
There you go, man. Isn't it ironic that the sound is a little out of sync? You know, it is kind of a sword and sandal graphic novel, so it kind of fits in the way that we would get the Italian sword and sandal movies, and the dubbing would be slightly off. So I am very glad to see this. You know, that's very cool.
Yeah,
looks great, man. Yeah, please.
Oh, I was going to say, as a writer, I love seeing myself talking.
I was about to say, thank God JT did the video. I'm so glad I didn't have to do it.
I left the room for a minute. So.
John, honestly, the images look great. I've got your Kickstarter page loaded, and we could really spend some time looking at some of these images and stuff. Tell me, as I load the page, why you chose to do this in black and white. It looks amazing. I'm a massive black and white fan.
Oh, thank you.
But what dictated that choice?
Well, black and white is the most dramatic that you can get. If you cut out the midtones and you have the blacks and you have the whites, and then that you're forced to think more graphically, and it's almost inherently going to be a more dramatic image. So we wanted to play in the black and white world. And then JT and I've talked about this before, Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein is a big influence on a lot of comic book artists and illustrators who do comic books and who do illustrations for novels too. And I wanted to sort of do a little nod to that as well. A lot of the work that I do is brush and nib heavy, and for these I went back to doing a lot more fine line inks and hatching and cross hatching, to build up some of those tones. But yeah, just for the drama, and it also allows, I think, the open spaces of a black and white illustration allow for, I think, more audience interaction. You can fill in part of the story and part of the imagery yourself as you're viewing and as you're reading it, as opposed to a fully painted image where I've done all the work. Like you can impart and interpret as much as you want to, but I think a black and white illustration actually invites the reader's interaction and interpretation.
I agree with everything you said, and certainly you're saying from a much more art knowledgeable standpoint. But honestly, I love black and white, and I hope, and I'm always happy as a middle-aged man when young people understand why black and white is cool, both in comics and television or film. You name it. It's like, as you said, it is. It's just there's this great. It is more dramatic. It really is, and it's more exciting, and especially what we can do with tones now, compared to not only in television and film, but again in comics even. Just the ability to have that kind of subtlety now has to be wonderful. And again, based on the art, this had to take you a really long time, man, because there's a lot of detail in there.
Yeah, well, JT and I started talking about this years ago. So we were sort of building it slowly, and there's a handful of illustrations that ended up, scrapped forever. But I love the works. At the time didn't seem it took no more or less time than the illustrations I normally do. All the sort of heavy lifting was done before the illustration, with JT and I sort of figuring out the scenes and the imagery that we wanted to use, sort of rather than, because it is a fantasy book, but rather than really leaning into like, well, there's a battle here and there's a reveal here and there's illustrating sort of the obvious. We wanted to take a step back and illustrate some of the quieter moments. And again, like inviting the reader, you just read about this big battle. You have it in your head, however you've built that battle. I don't need to do anything. Let's take a step back and sort of, on the Kickstarter, one of the illustrations is Bixel, the main Badger character. And it's just a portrait.
I'm going to get back to it. I'll show it in a second.
So, JT and I let's show that character. Let's try to show some of the emotion that he's seeing in the moment of that illustration. And then let's invite the reader to sort of see how they feel about the character in that particular moment too. So those were that took longer figuring out what we wanted to do and what we wanted to say than the art itself. The art itself I love, but that's what I do every day. So that's just, that's the job. The hard part is figuring out what we want to say with it.
Sure.
And sometimes being with so much of my experience has been in the comic book realm. So, and I've this is my third prose book, and so when we were talking about the illustrations, you do have to kind of think in a different way and not go after what you might think of it as the kind of prototypical splash page in a comic book or a graphic novel, because this is an illustrated novel. Like Jonathan said, we wanted to highlight the world and the tone more than we wanted to highlight events in the book, and so
understood.
Whether it's highlighting the character or the environment, like Jonathan said, they're the quieter, the softer moments that can kind of have more power to them. And also, even more importantly, there's 15 black and white illustrations. So there's a lot of art in the book, which I love because I think that it enhances the story so much. And I always know that like reading like like he was saying, like Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein, and also Wrightson did the great art in Stephen King's The Stand, and reading like the Dark Tower books and seeing those pages, like I always wanted to get a little more. You know, you get those, and you're looking forward to the next one coming up. And Jonathan's talked before a lot about how in an illustrated novel like this, the reader tends to stay with the art a little longer. Like you stop on it because you don't get as much of it as you do like a graphic novel or a comic book. So you, as opposed to like burning through the story, kind of you allow yourself that time to breathe and stop on the art and kind of absorb it in a more impactful way, I think. So
yeah, and it's a mood setter for the prose, you know, rather than the combination of dialogue, obviously, and visual storytelling. So no, I can definitely appreciate that. Like I said, it looks amazing. I was last on, I believe, the Ivory King himself. But yeah, talk about the king and talk about your main point of view character.
Yeah, like I was saying, so the main character of the story is Bixel. He's a blacksmith apprentice, and the kingdom of Gingamon's kingdom, the Elephant King, they're about to have a celebration, kind of an anniversary celebration for the kingdom's existence. And he gets invited to go, and he's never met the king before, and he's super excited and beside himself. And something happens tragically that throws the whole kingdom into disarray. And there's a greater threat that's imminent. And while everybody's grappling with that, Bixel kind of gets enlisted, or almost basically volunteers to go on this quest to find a mystical elixir that may be the only thing that could save the king and the kingdom itself. And so it's really about, again, the ordinary going into the extraordinary to see if they can rise to the challenge, rise to the occasion. And in doing so, we'll learn about himself, about his place in the world, and about the world around him in general. And so it's, again, while there's this fantasy, it's definitely a fantasy tale. I've been reading and rereading a lot of like Hermann Hesse lately. And like, I like his style, his prose style, because it's very simple and direct. And this book is like that. It's got a very easy flow to it. And also it's kind of dealing with these themes in a way that just kind of lets it wash over the reader, where we're not trying to like build backstory and build huge mythology in your face. Kind of, it's more about the different characters he interacts with and the different experiences he has and how that changes him. And also how it just allows the reader to kind of, I don't know, just kind of experience the world, but also hopefully make them see their own world in a way, and how they're in it, and the different kind of the forces at play, and decisions and ramifications that can kind of come into play in that regard. So
Understood. I'm on the Kickstarter page now, and if you just want to read the story, $10 for a PDF. If you want a hardcover book, it's $25, and then that's when the tiers start kicking in. You included $35, a cool print. In fact, again, let me share the screen because I want to ask about some of these things. We'll get to it, but I want to know about the sketchbook. But I know there's a print that comes, a 6x9 print at I think $35 or $50.
35.
It is 35. Okay. And then when do people? There's a book plate as well. Is that at 100 or is that at?
The book plate's at 100, I think.
Yeah,
right?
and it's an original sketch.
Sketchbook. Yeah, so they'll be inserted into the book, and I think that we did a limited run, so each one will have a sketch that I do.
That's great, man. No, I mean honestly, I'm all about more so than buying pages. I'm a massive I'll buy a commission from somebody, and I love getting books with book plates in them. And also the few artists, Gary Gianni illustrated a collection of Ron Howard, Conan, Robert Howard. You know, between Opie and Richie Cunningham, Ron Howard wrote those Conan stories, and he did. It's a Robert Howard collection of boxing stories, and Gary just drew this fantastic little fighter in the inside cover. So no, I love stuff like that. That's amazing that you're offering that.
I'm disappointed. I was kind of hoping Gary did like a night shift, Ron Howard's night shift collection with Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton in the funeral parlor. So
a young Michael Keaton, absolutely.
Michael
Come on,
yeah.
Love that. That's a great movie, man.
It is a great movie.
Here, I'm getting the page for the Kickstarter. There it is. So yeah, $35 you get the print, and then at $50 the sketchbook comes in. So tell me about the sketchbook, Jonathan.
Yeah, the sketchbook. This was JT's suggestion. Actually, I was super excited to build it. I mean, like I said, we started talking about this ages ago, so I've got pages and pages of sort of exploratory character design and world building stuff, and we decided to collect some of them, and I think it ended up being 16 pages. I think it's all the sort of the breakdowns for the main characters. It's got some of the sketches for environments.
Cool.
And then the front and back. I think the front cover is the layout of a painting that I am finishing up for the back cover of the hardcover book. It's a lot of cover.
Art of the art.
The art, yeah, all the art. But it's great. It's the piece that we mentioned right when we started with the turtle with the city is in there. So that's what leads
awesome.
the book. And so you can see what we're actually talking about. And then yeah, like I said, the work was in building the illustration. So, there's 2 or 3 pages just of head studies of badgers, and then armor, and then, some of the weaponry plays an important part. So figuring out what certain swords are going to look like, and that's all in there. And I love, just like you were saying, like I'll back and buy book plates and sketch editions and sketchbooks too. I love getting stuff like that. So it was fun to be able to build one too.
That's awesome. And I noticed at 150 for aspiring writers, JT, you're willing to do a consultation with them, and you're doing it for five of these are available.
Yeah. There's still a few left. You
Cool.
know, I get asked all the time at conventions and stuff and whatnot, and I think it's always great to be able to do to kind of have that one-on-one time with people and be able to kind of ask the questions at whatever stage people are in their development and their their careers or their writing life, I guess you would say. So yeah, we wanted to have that available. And but going back to the art for a second, like that's the sketchbook I think is really cool because I love, like you guys, I love seeing the process of the creation, and being able to sit at conventions over the years and just sit with artists and watch them create when they're doing their commissions and doing their sketches. Like, it's just so fascinating to watch art be created in the process. And so this is like the best way to be able to kind of give that to somebody so they can kind of see the progression of things. And I think there's also a great like spread in the sketchbook that shows kind of like some sizing comparison of the different characters, almost like action figure, toy figure design kind of poses. Like they're all kind of like just kind of standing there. And I just love that stuff. And sometimes you just get so much more out of seeing like the process kind of evolve by that. So, and who doesn't like to see more art, so.
Absolutely. And then, wow, did somebody already claim this Bixel?
Yeah,
page?
all of the original pages are gone already.
I understand, man. Good for you. Congrats.
Which was exciting. I was happy for that. But
Yeah.
there were
Sure.
3 of the pages were available, and then they got snapped out.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. Congratulations to the people that got these. That's fantastic. That's really, really cool. So, forgive me, are these images like in the blade of the sword?
They are, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the pieces I was just mentioning. Some of the weaponry, yeah.
That's incredible. What, like, is there? I mean, have you seen examples of ancient weaponry where that kind of detail it's that detailed?
Not that detailed.
Clearly,
I feel, well, yeah. Like, if there are any, I don't know, sword makers or smiths out there, like, I know you could not get this in steel.
Oh my
So
God,
I was sort of building. I was referencing more like wood and stone relief carving.
Sure.
Than actual blade carving.
Sure. It's fantasy.
It still works. So.
Well, it's not necessarily fantasy. If we could train a badger to be a blacksmith, we don't know what they would be capable of doing.
That's true.
Okay?
They got those little hands. You never know. They can do really intricate detail work with those tiny little hands. I can appreciate that. That's hilarious.
So the sword itself, it's not really much of a spoiler, I guess. I mean, we always struggle on what to tell about the story and what not to share. But
Sure.
Bixel is for this celebration because he's enamored with the king and such a loyal citizen, and he reveres him. He's been working on this sword, and that's like the gift that he's going to present to the king is like a sword with this mural on it etched into it, and it's like his special presentation. So it does play a kind of a big symbolic part in the story itself, as in addition to just looking very cool.
Very cool. A detour from the book for a second, because on YouTube, Ed had a good question. Eventually, I was going to ask this question anyway, or bring up the subject, because I always make JT talk about this whenever he comes on Word Balloon. but Ed really loved your Superman Beyond with Cal as a firefighter. How did that project come about? How did that feature you did for a while?
It's just I was working heavy with DC at the time, and they were getting their. This is when they were trying to do that digital initiative, so they were really kind of pushing a lot of emphasis into that, and it was just another. Honestly, it was a chance for me to get the right Superman, because it's a hard character to get the reins for in the DC realm. There's a lot of writers who they get very, you know how writers are, they get very territorial of their characters that they want to play with, and so it was a chance to be able to write that character that I wasn't gonna at that time was not gonna get the chance to do, and Alex Antone was the editor on it at the time, and got to know him really well, and it was just great working with Howard Porter. I had never worked with, but had known for years because he'd worked with friends of mine, and I've seen conventions, and we went and had I think it was at New York Con, we talked about it. We met for a drink, all of us sat down and we kind of started talking about it, and it was just so much fun. It was so much fun to get to play with kind of the comics are mythology, and to be able to take those mythic toys and mythic elements and just kind of repurpose them in a different type of setting and deal with a kind of a different Luthor and the daughter or the granddaughter and Superman and everybody, and just kind of play in a different way. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, DC just wrapped up its Future State a couple months, and I certainly thought about your Superman Beyond story, because again, it's Lois is dead. This is 2 generations beyond. Obviously this is the Batman Beyond world of that story. And that was a lot of fun. And it was like Superman suddenly deciding, I've been away from Earth too long. I need to connect again. New secret identity. He's a firefighter, kind of getting in a relationship maybe with another firefighter, which is interesting.
Yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun, man. How many chapters were you able to do? Because as you say, it was digital.
So the way it's funny, the way they did it was they a little behind the scenes sausage making process. They because of the format of the iPad, they would take a page of traditional art and they would break that into 2 pages. And so the top half was one. So when Howard did the work, if you notice on the print version, all the splashes are half splashes, and either it's at the top of a page with panels below the next scene, or at the bottom of a page. So you'd kind of have that. So because as you're scrolling through your iPad, that's how everything would get revealed. And so that was a little bit of a different way to go about, but it allowed us to cram a lot more story in because your splashes weren't taking up as much real estate. So I think it was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was five issues. So it was 10 chapters technically per per
digital release. Yeah. So that's cool, man. Honestly, and I think it's it's still Superman, but it's Superman, like you said, it's a new setting, it's a new set of problems. And it was, I think, really one of the best. I mean, certainly of its time. And I used to tell you this all the time. Compared to the other Supermen that were being written at the time, it was the best Superman book out there.
Thank you.
It absolutely was.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jonathan, I want to know what you were doing. Like, I'm assuming, did you and JT work together over at Aspen? Where were you?
We did a couple little things together. I think, like, I did a couple pages on some of the Soulfire books that JT was on. And then I was doing some other stuff at Aspen. I did Shrugged when I was there, and what else? And then some of the Soulfire volume. I can't even remember now. One of them.
It was a Search for the Light special you did.
I can't remember. Well, anyway. But yeah, that's how JT and I met. And then I was Marvel exclusive for a little while, and I was doing.
What were you doing at Marvel
over there? And so I was on the Dark Tower for a couple years, and then
that's awesome! The adaptation, absolutely. And
it was great.
Was it Perkins? No, Perkins would be drawing.
No, Peter David was doing the.
Peter wrote it. Very cool.
So, yeah,
nice.
It was sort of expanding on the Stephen King stuff, but it was cool. That was an interesting book for me. It was more of the traditional Marvel style than anything else I've ever done. We would get these outlines and then do the art, and then Peter would write the dialogue afterwards
over the art. I understand.
Which is kind of a cool process.
Was he plot style then, or was he?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was more detailed than like the 60s those scripts that you see, but for the Dark Tower at least, it was all just outline plot. Yeah.
And again, I whenever I say this, I don't want people to think, hey, I'm not the IRS, I'm not your accountant, I don't need to know dollars. But like, did it succeed? I mean, did it find its own audience? Because those things really are outside the Wednesday
Yeah.
Warriors direct market and everything, and it really seems like it sells better.
I don't. Yeah, the collections I think do well, and I think that the
Right.
Dark Tower book, to be completely honest, the first artist on it was Jay Lee, and
Sure.
he is,
What a
is
hack.
phenomenal. Yeah. So I think that Jay starting out the book sort of set a precedent, and Alex Maleev did some stuff, and like there are big painterly artists who are on it, which was why I think I was happy.
Yeah. I mean, that's why. No, as soon as you said that, I'm like, well, of course, that absolutely fits your style.
Yeah.
What are some other? So how were you just on it for an arc?
I did 2 arcs with them. It's called Bitter Medicine and the Lady of Shadows. So all the, if you know the stories, all the Odetta stuff, Odetta Holmes stuff.
Cool.
So those 2 arcs there, and then some Wolverine and Doctor Strange annuals and
Sure.
Savage Wolverine. Yeah, and all super fun stuff. And then as I was getting more into painting and painted comics, I started doing more self-publishing and creator-owned books as well. So the past couple of years have been all creator-owned, sort of oversized painted comics. Some through Kickstarter and some just self-published, distributed by myself.
What's your website to get your books?
Yeah. So Jonathan Marks Art, and Jonathan Marks Art is the Instagram as well. So the most recent one is a book called Mariner, which is sort of an extension and expansion on some of the themes from Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So that came out last year, but that's available on my website. And then I got a new book, should be out actually this month or next month, that I did with a writer named Alan Amato. It's sort of a dark religious monster story. I don't know. I mean, he's talked about it. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm not going to talk about his story. But Alan's another friend that I met when I was living in LA as well. And it's a story that he and Grant Morrison had come up with, ages ago. And then he took and ran with it and invited me to come on and do the art. So,
he's listening right now saying, like, he's not a monster. He's just misunderstood.
Yeah. It's a very dark story, and it's the part 1 is going to be out, I think, next month, and then part 2, Alan and I are figuring out.
And is that full sequential, or are you just doing illustrations?
So that's a full. I think that one's about 50 pages. Mariner's about 100 pages. Punch is about 50. And for Punch as well, there's like JT and I did. There's back matter and sketchbook stuff, and a couple other artists were involved doing alternate covers for that one.
Okay. So, are you kickstarting that, or are you?
That one was kickstarted and funded.
Great.
Last summer. Yeah. So then we're just with the way the world worked this past year. The books are just now arriving, so they should be distributed and then available, I think, in the next month or 2, actually.
And JT, is this your first Kickstarter?
It's my first Kickstarter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as an how many have you done so far, Jonathan?
So the Mariner one I ran with the writer of the book named Michael Dean, and then the Punch one and this one with JT, I was invited on to build the story and build the project, but thankfully I didn't have to run the Kickstarter. So JT has been doing the heavy lifting here, and for Punch, Alan there. But crowdfunding is great and horrible and frustrating and exciting, and
this is what I want to hear. Go on.
It's a I don't know. I was going to say complicated. It's not that complicated. It can be a frustrating endeavor, but just with the way the comic books are working now, it's a great way to present your work to an audience that may not have been able to get access to it anyway. And as a creator, a great way to not only make the book, but to get excitement about it and traction behind it.
Understood. No, honestly, I've been observing, the whole crowdfunding platform for comics over these last, almost 15 years now.
Yeah, it's been
and I was going to say 10 years. I mean, no, I remember in 2007, I think it might have been my first Kickstarter conversations. I might have to look that up actually and see. But it really is. It's interesting in the different ways it's changed. And also, like you said, this is your third. JT, this is your first. I wonder how many people have made that choice in the last 12 months because of COVID, things like that. What prompted this book for crowdfunding? Is it, do you just have more control over your content, JT? I mean, again, you've been a guy who's been published in a lot of places and everything, both novels and comics.
Well, that's part of it. I think the publishing landscape's very complicated now, like for books and for comic books, and going from one field to another, like it's really tricky. Like going from like my establishment in the comic book realm, going then trying to do prose work, like it doesn't have like a one-to-one carryover. And I learned that we kind of learned it the hard way, doing some stuff where it didn't connect as much as we wanted it to.
Okay.
And look, I would go to conventions for years, and people would come up and be like, oh, when I was doing Green Arrow, they'd be like, oh, I love your Green Arrow. It's such a great take, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, here's this Minefield book I did with Aspen. It's the same. It's a dark kind of character-driven story. And they go, oh, that's cool. And they'd walk, because some people, it's just, some people have their thing and they just want the characters that they love, which I get,
Sure.
So getting people to go on to something new is a challenge. And for us in this project in particular, we love, like, again, we keep harking back to the Bernie Wrights and Frankenstein. It's about the presentation. So we knew if we did this, we wanted to be a hardcover book. We wanted to be in control of the quality of the work it would be, and to be able to put out a book like this, it was just the way to go, because then we could make sure we had the funds necessary to make the book everything we want to do. And then if we're fortunate enough to get funding and reach some of our stretch goals, we have plans for things we can do that are additive, for not just in addition to like kind of standard extras, but like things that'll actually enhance the physical book itself, which we're really excited about, if we get there. But that was part of it. And then honestly, just wanting to put something out, because like Jonathan said, the pandemic threw everything out of whack, and books got canceled and work got canceled, and we're all kind of just shut in, and it's hard enough not sharing your writing with the world when you're working, when it's normal times, and then you just kind of like, you want to put stuff out because you feel like you're speaking to the wall, and you want to know that there's other people you want to know there's other people in the universe. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In prose, JT, are you like looking at the different size, a novella versus a full-fledged novel? Because again, talking to people like Brubaker and others that are attacking it from a comic standpoint and taking advantage of doing self-published and, creator-owned on the different platforms and stuff, they're flirting with, 50-page novellas or whatever. And certainly, DC's doing it obviously with their line as well.
Right.
But tell me about from a pro standpoint.
Yeah, I think this is definitely not in the style of like a Game of Thrones or the Wheel of Time stuff. Like and by design, it's not like that. And again, like I've been the Herman Hesse in terms of the philosophical, but also stuff like reading a lot of old Michael Moorcock books, and they just they clip through, right? And and you can get through them. And also, honestly, like people's attentions are. It's a battle to keep people's attention on stuff. And so if we said, oh, here's this 900-page book, first of all, it wouldn't be ready for a Kickstarter till 2030. and who knows what the world would be like then. But yeah, we wanted to keep it kind of streamlined a bit and crisp in its pace and whatnot. And so also then it could also kind of be appeal to a wide age of audience, So there's definitely that fail. And as a writer, you do kind of get like, oh, I've got to write it in this style because that's fantasy. You want to take a paragraph to describe what the castle looks like. And it's like, you don't always have to do that. And I love those books. I'm reading one of them right now. And, the ones where you just like 800 pages and you just kind of dive in and sit with it for a month or whatever. But this is definitely a different style. And I think Jonathan's illustrations and I think having that, I think being from a comic background, I always want to see stuff, I want to work, and I want to work with people, and the part of this was just, again, we wanted to do something together. And that was the main impetus to do that became the Ivory King. And so obviously, Jonathan could have just done a cover or a couple images, but I wanted him to be more involved, and we wanted to build it together and really make it so that the illustrations play just as important of a part in the story and the presentation to the reader than that the prose does.
What I will say to JT's credit, sorry, I just it's not a Game of Thrones length book, but it's a fully realized world. Like as you're reading, you are, or I, and I'm not alone. you're fully immersed in this world, and there's you empathize and sympathize with the characters. You put yourself in the situation, so it was an easy sort of world to get into from an illustrative side, to really sort of expand upon.
Well, the images you have on your Kickstarter page, I think, even as basic as they are, like that shot of Bixel in the reeds and everything. No, I felt very sucked in looking at that, so I get it. And Wesley Jones makes a nice comment, says Bixel looks awesome, getting some red wall vibes.
Nice, thank you, Wesley.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, any anthropomorphic imagery you do is going to call up some of those big,
sure, absolutely.
Fan favorites. Yeah.
I would never show it if I still had it, and I don't. But when I was in like 4th grade and we did book reports, and back in those days, most of the book report time was spent drawing the cover for the book report, because the book report itself was the page. And I did The Secret of Nim, which is fantastic. And I love the movie and I love the book. And so like this harkens a little bit to that too, that kind of notion. And like in doing this, I went back and looked at any sort of anthropomorphic or animalistic type stories, like the Red Wall, Mouse Guard, Secret of Nim, Watership Down, even Island of Dr. Moreau, just to kind of get in that space about
I can see that. Absolutely.
The animalistic nature kind of being conveyed in the personality of the creature itself. So
and what did you look at, Jonathan, to kind of, I mean, obviously I'm sure a lot of basic, pictures of wildlife.
Yeah. Is it the Island Dr. Moreau that JT says is a good one, because if you've ever drawn or painted, if you ever tried to combine a human and an animal to make a convincing anatomy or convincing figure, it's not as easy as just sticking a head on a human body. It doesn't always work. And I've talked to other artists about this, like the weirdest things about where do the shoulders land if an elephant were to stand upright with longer arms and 5 fingers? Like stuff like that, which I think there's a beautiful Dr. Moreau that Bill Sienkiewicz did that where he nails that kind of stuff. But yeah, just sort of figuring out the anatomy and seeing how other people have done it, and then seeing how nature does it, like how actual animals are put together.
God, have you met Richard? Elephant Men. Richard Starkings.
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad. Shame on me. I apologize. Richard, if you see this, I apologize. God, Jonathan, I'd love to see you on something like Elephant Men, and
I would love
see
to.
what your take would be on that.
Yeah, he's great. He's so nice. I've known John. I haven't seen him obviously in a long time, but like when I first got started in comic book writing and was doing my first like signings at conventions, I would see him a lot because he's also was in LA a lot. And so we would see each other at like the free comic book day signings and all that sort of stuff, and the more local conventions. Yeah, he's super nice.
Yeah, just an interesting history in comics. From lettering all the way to writing and everything, and all the interesting. Again, a guy that has spent his time with the big two, but really is on his own path with a lot of his writing, and I think it's just incredible. So very cool, guys. Honestly, I like I said, I really love what I've seen. I would, beyond this one, are you guys thinking about doing other illustrated books together?
Of course,
definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. Secret stuff at the moment, but yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about continuing to collaborate.
Outstanding, guys. Yeah. Very cool. Well, the book is called The Ivory King, and you can go to the Kickstarter page there. I will, in fact, for the chat. Put the actual link right there for the, and this will show up everywhere. Boom, I'm doing that. All right, very good.
Multitasking. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I know. Here we go.
One man shop.
So it's right there, everybody. Nice. And again, I will, let people know as well that obviously you go to Kickstarter and search for JT Krul and Ivory King. It'll pop up that way as well. And again, go to jonathanmarksart.com to check out more of Jonathan's books. Gentlemen, I think it's really, really interesting, and I wish you luck on this, and I'm happy to ring the bell for you guys because it's a cool project.
Yeah, John, thanks so much for having us. Yeah, thank you. So really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, this was great, guys. Thank you. Thank you, JT. Thank you, Jonathan. Everybody stay tuned. In about an hour, I'll be talking to Tom King about some of his current books as well. So it's a combination of the Ivory King and Tom King.
There you go.
Nice.
Let me tell you, it's a
Real
little
kingly evening.
lot of majesty happening on Word Balloon Live tonight. So I'll see you guys in about 60 minutes. It'll give me a chance to get a drink and relax and everything and recharge. But another conversation coming up. Thanks a lot for watching, JT, Jonathan, and myself. And